Hello, my name is Eric Brown from the Texas Veterans Land Board. As a 22-year Air Force veteran, it is my pleasure to talk with you today about the importance of understanding the senior veterans residing in our Texas State Veterans Homes. As a member of the Texas State Veterans Homes Division, continuously seeking opportunities for improvement and enhancing the care provided to our veteran residents is driven by a commitment to serve those that served. Today, my goal is to provide valuable information to help you gain a better understanding of our Texas State Veterans Home residents. This will include specific information about the care provided to our senior veteran residents, the culture of military service, military experiences, impact of service on normative aging, common health ailments associated with service, and communicating with the veteran resident. Understanding the various experiences of our veteran residents and the military values they obtained during service is important when providing person-centered care. As a veteran, military traditions such as ceremony, rank, discipline, loyalty, and group cohesion are qualities that help to ensure each service member performs at their very best. The military experiences, traditions, and sacrifices of our veterans form what we refer to as the shadow of service. Taking the time to understand the shadow of service increases the understanding of the veteran resident and promotes the concept of person-centered care. Person-centered care is essentially a focus on the needs, preferences, and values of the individual person. Person-centered care, which is essentially a culture change in long-term care, is increasingly viewed as an important aspect of delivering quality care to residents. Now, let's get a better understanding of who resides in the Texas State Veterans Homes. The Texas State Veterans Homes residents are primarily aging military veterans, many of whom have served in historical conflicts such as World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. The resident population also includes veteran spouses and Gold Star parents who have lost a child in combat overseas. Unlike typical long-term care facilities with majority female populations, the Texas State Veterans Homes communities are majority male populations. Working with the Texas State Veterans Homes is a great opportunity to serve those who served, but can be challenging for those who do not fully understand our very special population of residents. Some of you may be wondering, who is a veteran? A veteran is anyone who has served in a branch of the military. This is anyone who served in the active services or was called up from the military reserves. Veterans can be male, female, and from different ages. Their service could have been anywhere from a brief time in the military to 30 or more years. During military service, veterans put their lives on the line and in harm's way to defend this country and our way of life. Veterans made a commitment to defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Their commitment ensured our families, loved ones, and freedoms were protected. Although we often hear of the sacrifices and service of the veteran, the spouses, families, and loved ones of veterans also serve through their dedication and support. The military spouse has a long-standing history of dedication, commitment, and loyalty alongside the military service member. Military spouses are strong, proud, and very supportive of the veteran's service. Americans appreciate those who serve their country, and the spouses are no exception. Gold Star parents are also welcome residents in the Texas State Veterans Homes. Gold Star parents are those that have endured the loss of a child during combat overseas, which is represented by hanging a flag with a gold star for each child lost in the window of a home. The concept of Gold Star parent began during the end of World War I and is a tradition that continues today. The sacrifices of families and extended families in support of our heroes' service are truly exceptional. The military family makes a clear difference during critical times of the service member's career. It is also important to acknowledge the importance of family involvement in person-centered care. Direct care providers, residents, and their family members should all have a voice in care decisions. The family's involvement leads to the greatest chance of success in promoting person-centered care. Understanding military culture is important when caring for the veteran resident. Each branch of service has a distinct mission and operates according to long-standing traditions, core values, and a set of laws known as the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, also known as the UCMJ, is a comprehensive set of laws that applies to all members of the uniformed services. It includes laws similar to those found in the civilian sector, but also includes punishment for military crimes that affect good order and discipline in the military. Unique military crimes that fall under the UCMJ include, for example, such offenses as disrespect towards superiors, failure to obey orders, and dereliction of duty. These laws guided our veterans throughout their military careers and day-to-day life and have been influential to the high standards of discipline observed in many of our veterans today. Understanding the influence of the UCMJ on many veterans sheds some light on the motivations, behaviors, and qualities that are unique to those that have served in uniform. The culture of service also includes loyalty, traditional ceremonies, and unique military rules. An example can be found in the rules governing the order of display for the military service flags. The military service flags should be displayed according to the age of the particular branches of service. Another example can be found in the wear of the military uniform. Veteran residents may prefer to have their personal clothing pressed and with creases, which is similar to the standards and attention to detail followed when proudly wearing their military uniform. Group cohesion is a concept used to define the bond that links service members to one another and to their branches of service. Members of strong groups are more inclined to participate readily and stay with the group. The impact of strong group cohesion found within the military was evident during a brief encounter with a veteran resident while visiting a Texas State Veterans Homes. After noticing a veteran resident proudly wearing a cap with the Marine Corps logo, I asked him, "How long did you serve in the Marine Corps?" The gentleman replied with a strong and confident voice, "I never got out." His response was a great example of the commitment and dedication of a Marine. A common phrase used to define those who serve in the Marine Corps is, "Once a Marine, always a Marine." The strong group cohesion and camaraderie common among veterans can also be traced back to their specific duties during service. Individual job duties and specialties of service members are an important part of military culture and help define the individual's role within the service branches. Each job duty or specialty is an important part of the service branch's mission and culture. High levels of discipline and a sense of pride is common among individuals who understand the importance their specific jobs and specialties have on their individual service branch's mission. For example, a bomber pilot understands that following direct orders during a mission saves lives and halts enemy aggression. When directed to bomb a target, the pilot and his crew take full responsibility and accountability for their aircraft, their bomb, and their target. Combat medical personnel brave danger in the heat of battle to tend to wounded soldiers with an understanding that controlling their emotions will help to remain focused on saving lives. A drill sergeant cannot show weakness and must set the example by using aggressive discipline, supported by fearless dedication when training new military recruits. A platoon leader must be aware of their surroundings and always be on the lookout to make important battlefield decisions that could save lives. A military intelligence officer is entrusted with secret information important to mission security. In combat environments, these attributes are essential to survival and mission success, but can sometimes be viewed as liabilities in a civilian setting. According to Army research, some of the characteristics needed during combat are accountability, emotional control, targeted aggression, tactical awareness, and mission security. The U.S. Department of Defense defines these characteristics associated with a concept known as battle mind. Battle mind is a service member's inner strength to face fear and adversity in combat with courage. The two components of battle mind are self-confidence and mental toughness, strengths that all service members must have to successfully perform in combat. Many veterans experience months of physical and mentally demanding military training in preparation for military life and combat. The behaviors and emotions that keep many service members alive on the battlefield are not always appropriate for normal settings within their homes and with the family. Veterans experience physically and mentally harsh, demanding, chaotic, and dangerous circumstances where there are no civilian friends or close family members they can relate to. In today's environment, military members are educated on the need to adapt their combat skills for home and prevent disruptions to the transitioning process from military to civilian life. When the behaviors and characteristics that have been developed for service in combat are not properly managed, the effect in civilian life can be challenging. For example, the bomber pilot, who was trained to be highly focused and accountable for his aircraft when delivering bombs to a target, may now be perceived as controlling. Some combat medical personnel with very high emotional control in the face of danger to save lives may now experience feelings of anger and detachment. The drill sergeant, who was expected to be rigid, disciplined, and fearless, may now display inappropriate aggression. The platoon leader, who went through years of training to gain a better understanding of their surroundings, may continue to be hypervigilant and always on the lookout in normal civilian settings. These examples of the effects of battle mind are in no way meant to describe every individual that serves. However, it is important to know how behaviors favorable to a combat environment can be viewed as unfavorable in normal civilian settings. For many veterans, the transition from combat to peacetime can be just as difficult as fighting in an actual combat. The social climate during the veterans' military service may have also impacted their transition to civilian life. During the service period, for many of our World War II veterans, there was widespread support across America and throughout the world. Service members returning home from combat during World War II were highly praised, showered with parades, and had overwhelming support for their service. It has been said that during this period in the nation's history, the American public also went to war. Every American pitched in, and there was high public support throughout the country. This support included medal donations and recycling efforts within communities to help build ships, planes, and weapons for the war effort. During the Korean War, the social climate and public support began to change. The Korean War began with high public support, which some have viewed as the rally around the flag phenomenon. Although there were fluctuations in attitudes, the Korean War was lower in public support than World War II for almost the entire war. The Korean War was fought in harsh climate conditions with sub-zero temperatures. Many of our warfighters were not well equipped for the conditions and often fell victim to frostbite and other horrific conditions on the battlefield. After the Korean War ended, there were not many parades or ceremonies, and not much notice was taken. The Korean War has often been referred to as a forgotten war, which is not a label that Korean War veterans are fond of. We should never forget the sacrifices of the Korean War veterans who bravely answered the call of duty. Although the social climate may have been much different in World War II, the heroics and bravery displayed by our veterans remained unchanged. The Korean War veterans were committed to their purpose and the mission as brave soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, trained to follow orders. So now, let's transition to the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War has been referred to on many occasions as the most divisive and bitter American experience since the Civil War. The war in Vietnam was fought during a very turbulent period in its nation's history. The first and only military draft, student unrest across the country, social and political protests, and the civil rights movement were all taking place. These events forever changed the American landscape. Typically, soldiers returning after a war are often met with a hero's welcome. However, Our brave men and women returning from Vietnam came home to an unsupportive climate filled with protests, hatred, and a misunderstanding by a significant number of Americans. This led to depression in many Vietnam veterans. Many veterans also returned home addicted to drugs, often used as coping mechanisms from the ravages of the war. The toll taken on Vietnam veterans became even more apparent as many veterans struggle, even today, with mental issues as a result of the war and the lack of public support. The level of support provided to our servicemen and women during combat or other conflicts is very important. Servicemen and women should feel the support of the country they are dedicated to. The American public's attitude about our servicemen and women has evolved and is as strong as ever. They are now supported regardless of the feelings about where or why they are sent into combat. Many of the veterans in the Texas State Veterans Home served in multiple wars and may have mixed emotions about their experiences and level of public support received. These mixed emotions, along with the effects of combat, stress, and trauma, may have impacted our veterans' transition back to civilian life. Although a number of wars and combat operations have been fought, such as the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the majority of our Veterans Home residents served during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The impact of military service has garnered much attention over the past 20 years. During the senior veterans' periods of service, there were very few screenings and limited clinical research for ailments such as post-traumatic stress disorder, combat stress, or combat-related trauma. The senior veterans had few resources to manage their emotions and understand the psychological and emotional tolls of war, conflict, and military service. During my own service in the Air Force, I can recall returning home from combat operations with few to no questions asked about my health and no screenings conducted to determine my overall physical and mental well-being. Current research on combat exposure has resulted in advances in the prevention, identification, and treatment of combat and service-related behavioral issues. It is also important to note that stressors and trauma also occurs during humanitarian missions, less popular conflicts, and even in the performance of day-to-day training operations. Although the fundamental nature of stress and trauma across all wars are similar, the biggest differences can be found in the combat intensity and length of exposure. Undiagnosed and untreated ailments such as P.T.S.D, depression, and other psychological injuries can lead to a lifetime of struggle for veterans. For many veterans, our military experiences are tucked away in an extremely sacred and personal compartment in our minds and hearts. Many veterans do not tell their spouses, family, or friends about what they experienced. The quest for peace and reconciliation is oftentimes more difficult than fighting in combat. Sometimes, no matter how much a veteran tries to protect these experiences, triggers can lead a veteran to relive traumatic memories or emotional pain. A trigger is something that sets off a memory tape or flashback, transporting the person back to the traumatic event. A person's triggers are activated through one or more of the 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. 3 of these triggers, sight, sound, and touch, come to mind as otherwise normal occurrences throughout the day in the veterans' homes. Some examples of these triggers are environmental noises, such as chair and bed alarms, sudden loud noises, such as dropped objects, moving furniture across the floor, doors being slammed, confined or enclosed spaces, innocent contact for mobility assistance, and the sounds of pain and distress. Triggers may be tangible, such as a physical object, or intangible, like sight, thoughts, or sounds. I can recall a recent story of one of our veteran residents who disliked the sight of white rice served during mealtimes. After an inquiry by a concerned staff member, it was discovered that the gentleman experienced horrific conditions during the infamous Bataan Death March in the Philippines. This was a forced 80-mile march of between 60 to 80,000 Filipino and American troops by the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II. During the march, prisoners were tortured, given very little food and water, and on occasion were served rice containing insects, dirt, and other contaminants not meant for human consumption. Triggers can be reminders of experiences or events such as gunfire, bomb blasts, or alarms for taking cover from hostile enemy fire. Recognizing, discussing, minimizing, and if possible, eliminating triggers within the veterans' homes are helpful and can lead to improved quality of life for our veteran residents. Families play an important role in communicating known triggers that impact their loved ones to the veteran home staff, especially during the initial admissions process. Transition to the veterans' homes can be a mix of emotions. The veteran or resident may feel as though they are giving up something and could experience a range of emotions. A more desirable transition can be achieved when the facility staff collects information specific to the veteran resident needs and makes an effort to better understand the veteran from the beginning. As mentioned earlier, care providers, residents, and their family members all have a voice in care decisions. Keep in mind, we are caring for the person, not treating a disease. The focus should be on the whole person and may include their preferences, hobbies, skills, special diets, and health-related ailments. There are a number of health-related ailments and medical issues considered prevalent among veterans after military service. Many of these ailments and injuries are service-related and may be the result of specific job duties or individual responsibilities. For example, veteran Army paratroopers jumping from aircraft experience ankle and knee injuries due to the impact of landing. Back injuries are common among veterans who were oftentimes required to carry 70 or more pounds of combat gear. Veterans involved in ground combat push overall physical limits in the performance of their duties. Veterans performed under sustained levels of energy brought on by increased adrenaline and stressful conditions, which oftentimes lead to high blood pressure. Respiratory ailments are common and are the result of exposure to chemicals, toxins, or other environmental factors, such as those found in countries lacking environmental regulations. Veterans were also trained to listen for sounds that were used to indicate particular activities or situations such as warnings for hostile actions, incoming bombs, and missiles. Unfortunately, hearing loss due to repeated exposure to gunfire, bomb blasts, or aircraft noises takes a toll on the veteran's hearing. During earlier periods of military service, personal safety equipment such as hearing protection did not receive adequate attention and was not as effective as the safety equipment used today. Communication with the resident and families is also important to addressing specific concerns. Although the veteran may not communicate knowledge of certain ailments or injuries, the families oftentimes have a good understanding of the ailments or injuries their loved one experiences. The veterans and residents' personal preferences are also an important topic for discussion with the family. The family can be your greatest ally. Make them a part of the process and include them in your goals of providing exceptional care. Remember, the family is an important resource when it comes to person-centered care. Discussing preferences specific to the veteran and resident can be a valuable first step to building rapport with the family. For example, simple questions such as, how would the veteran or resident like to be addressed, could be invaluable to the veteran or resident stay in the home. How the veteran or resident is addressed is important to maintaining their sense of identity. As an example, addressing the veteran as Colonel Jones versus Mr. Jones may be the veteran's preferred method of address. Also important to the veteran may be the military rank they have obtained. From enlisted to officer, veterans are proud when they earn military rank. Many embrace these career accomplishments throughout their lives. The veteran and spouses may have certain expectations around their military positions or rank that could be misinterpreted. A high-ranking veteran may be perceived by the staff as demanding, stern, or direct. Although not always the case, this could be the result of leadership characteristics formed from their position as a senior leader during military service. Since preferential treatment is not condoned in the veterans' homes, an effort to find common ground among all veteran residents is one way of meeting these expectations. Although our senior veterans and residents served our country proudly, it is equally important to acknowledge their contributions to society as senior citizens. As mentioned earlier, veteran characteristics formed during service can result from a number of reasons, to include job duties and military positions held. The strict discipline, assertiveness, and focus that are the elements of service can sometimes create uneasiness for many people to varying degrees. Veterans value their independence, as they have had to perform at times with limited availability of resources. Veterans were trained to do what it takes under the most adverse conditions. For this reason, when a veteran declines assistance, it should not be taken personally or viewed as uncooperative behavior. Veterans have a remarkable ability to give unto others before they give to themselves. Serving and sacrificing for our great country while giving up our stake in the outcome is service before self. Talking with the veteran and understanding their life's experiences and perspectives is important to forming a relationship. Making an effort to find common ground, seeking a mutual understanding, and being a good listener creates the right balance for effective communication with the veteran. Communicating with a veteran about their military career or experiences should be approached with caution, as some may not have had pleasant experiences. Never force communication, and always allow adequate room for the veteran to share this information as they see fit. For the most part, senior veterans are a wealth of knowledge, with many on the front lines of American history. Take the time to talk with a veteran and listen to their stories. Many veterans are pleased to share their experiences. On many occasions, I have heard veterans' personal stories that have moved me because they were so inspiring and touching. Other stories have caused my heart to race because they were so vividly recounted, as though I could see the veteran in combat. When communicating with the veteran, be willing to take the time to listen. If you ask the question, "How are you doing?" give them the courtesy of stopping and listening to the response. It will go a long way for both you and them. When effective communication is not achieved and a situation becomes challenging to manage, immediate de-escalation techniques can be used. Always remember to acknowledge the resident's position on an issue and affirm their emotions. Reflective listening is one technique that can be used. With reflective listening, the veteran's or resident's issue is verbally received, then restated back to the veteran or resident to confirm the issue has been understood correctly. The purpose of reflective listening is to reconstruct what the veteran or resident is thinking and feeling and relay this understanding back to them. Verbally and non-verbally restating the resident's concerns can help to bring about calm. Non-verbal cues can be as simple as a head nod to acknowledge understanding. It is also important to remember to remain calm and give the resident your full attention. Speak softly, slowly, clearly, and look the veteran resident in the eyes. Negative emotions feeding off other negative emotions can be counterproductive to de-escalating a situation. Most people simply want to be heard and will begin to calm when acknowledged. Another effective method for effectively communicating with the veteran is from a common approach. Regardless of service branches, war periods, or duties, common among all veterans was their commitment to preserve and defend our country's freedoms. Veterans understand sacrifice and service before self. Understanding the veteran's commitment and sacrifices helps to build trust and admiration with those who have been entrusted with their care. Residents of the Texas State Veterans Homes expect to be treated with respect and dignity. High-quality health care, assistance with daily living, and a focus on the person are keys to a dignified quality of life for our veterans and their families. For many of our residents, this will be their last home. Living in a clean, safe, and dignified living environment preserves the dignity our senior residents deserve and is appropriate for their service to our country. The Texas Veterans Land Board appreciates the support provided to our senior veterans, their spouses, and Gold Star parents residing in our Texas State Veterans Home. Additional information for seeking opportunities for improving the care provided to our veterans and residents can be obtained from the Texas Veterans Land Board, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or the National Association of State Veterans Homes. Thank you for the amazing support you provide to our nation's veterans. Again, my name is Eric Brown, and it has been my pleasure speaking with you today.